And welcome to Thursdays with Annette at 2 o'clock on Facebook Live. I'm Annette Sim and I'm here today in my fizzy fabulous place, my kitchen. And you may notice that I'm wearing something a little bit special. I've just received a new shipment of aprons. Yes, you too can be fizzy fabulous in your kitchen too now, and I'll talk about it later. But last week's show was fantastic. We had lots and lots of comments, but the ones that I wanted to share with you today, Margaret commented that she'd missed watching me in the kitchen, and welcome back, Annette. I think a lot of you were really pleased to be back, and thank you for your enthusiasm. Judy wrote, "So inspiring, Annette. You're keeping me on track with your enthusiasm and success. Thank you." Because last week's show was talking about the 25 things I've learned since I got to my goal weight. So lots of great tips given out last week. Now, Anne wrote that she was a first timer. Hello, Anne. Welcome to the show. She said she really enjoyed it. And Diane said she loved all the tips and really enjoyed the show from last week. Now, I also received a lovely message from a lady who commented that number 1 and number 10 of the 25 tips I shared last week really hit home for her. I love aha moments, and this lady seemed to have that. Now, number 1 tip was, I am worth it, and so are you. And then tip 10 was a positive mindset is essential. So I'm really glad that you guys got a lot of tips and motivation from last week's show. Now, last week, of course, I was doing a giveaway, and the 3 winners, can I have a drum roll, please? Well done, team. The gorgeous Alison Haley has picked the creamy vanilla shake because each of these ladies got one of my beautiful premium breakfast shakes. Fabuloso. So Alison, creamy vanilla. Margaret Lang picked iced coffee. Good choice, Margaret. And Fee Louise, wicked chocolate. So they're all very excited and they'll receive their goodies next week. All right. So now this week, obviously, we're in the kitchen. And I'm going to make for you my light sponge. Now it's out of this fabulous book, number 3. It's one of my favourites. It's one of my 7 favourites, actually, out of 7. This is the recipe here, and look, hello, it starts the baking section. That's how fabulous that is. Now, if you're looking at that going, yeah, Annette, you're a good cook. You can make sponges, I can't. Well, today is for you. Sit down, get a cuppa on, because you are going to learn how to make a fail-proof sponge. It is super easy, super excited to get cooking, so let's get into it. Now, I've set my kitchen because I've got my little bag here. Now, these are going to be discontinued soon, aren't they? Does anyone know when they're finishing that? The bags? I think July. So we'll have to think of something better for my little rubbish bag. But my rubbish bag's there. I've got my utensils. I've got all the equipment I need. I put my little towel under here so it doesn't rock around. But let's look at the ingredients for my fabulous light sponge. You're going to start with 4 eggs, but you only use 2 yolks. Okay, so you actually put 4 egg whites in and 2. So you're going to throw out 2 yolks. I've got half a cup of caster sugar, which is a little bit better because it's a bit of a finer sugar for this type of recipe. I've got a 1/4 cup of self-raising flour, half a cup of corn flour, 2 tablespoons of custard powder. I've also got 3/4 teaspoon of bicarb soda, a teaspoon I will use of baking powder, and some cooking spray. And that's all you need. So a sponge is all about just the flours and the eggs. And that's what makes it really light. There's no butter in it. Okay, so let's start, and I'm going to chat to you as we go because we've got to do a bit of beating here. Now, these are my little tins that I have. I mean, you can tell they're well loved. I've probably had them since my Glory Box days, like 43 years ago. But, you know, you can buy these everywhere, so use them. Now, first of all, we start with the eggs. So let's do 2 egg whites. Now, I'm going to keep 2 of the yolks, remember? We don't need the 4. So straight up, I've saved 12 grams of fat. And the recipe works perfectly fine without using those other yolks. So 4 egg whites. Now, I've got some tips for you to share as we go along on how to make a great sponge and like where people go wrong. Because I know in the past, I really struggled with making sponges. Like Bill, my husband, he could just make a tower of fabulousness, but mine turned out like frisbees. So if you're like me, you need this recipe, because when I created it, I was so impressed with myself, and every time I make it, I just feel like everyone should clap and applaud because it's so fantastic. So we're going to beat. Now it's a bit like a pavlova, but we want to beat these egg whites up for quite a while until there's a stiff peak. Now, when you're making sponges, it's a really good idea when you're doing something like this that your utensils are dry and they're not wet, so that works well. Now, I've got 7 tips for you while I'm beating this up that'll tell you how to make a good sponge. Now, the first thing is you make sure you measure accurately. Don't just guess. Like, I've got them all measured out. I'm not going to just go, well, that looks like a teaspoon or that looks like half a cup. Stick to the recipe. That's another one. Make sure you stick to the recipe and don't veer off. The other one is check your baking powder, because I did that this week getting ready for the recipe, and my baking powder expired November 2017, and that would have made a difference to how it rises. So always check the use by date. Now another tip is the eggs that I used were at room temperature. It will beat up better than if you're getting them out of the fridge cold. So look at that. That's holding really well. We're great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding the caster sugar, and I'll probably do this in about 4 goes, because you just want to add a little bit at a time. Oh, wait a minute. It's a bit stuck down there. Let's lift that out. All right. So just a little bit at a time. Like a pavlova, it's all about light and airy. Now another great tip is please use these size tins. Don't be using a normal cake tin, because it's not the right size unless you make a double batch. Okay, so use the sponge tins. I hope you're writing these tips down. So give it a good beat. Now, another great tip for making good sponges is not to open the oven too quickly. You know, like keep it shut until you have to check on them near the time it's cooked. Another bit. It's so easy to make a sponge this way. And we've had a few people say to us over the time, will you ever show us how to make a sponge, Annette? So for those that have asked for it, here it is. And that's what I ask you. If you have a recipe or something that you struggle making, let me know and we'll do it together. All right. Looking good. And you know my final tip on how to make a good sponge is make my recipe. Hello. Get it out of book 3. I really don't think you can fail. One more lot. There we go. Beat that up. I'm so excited to be in the kitchen again for this new season. Oh, this is looking really good. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in the 2 yolks, and I'm going to just put this on the first speed just to combine it. That's it. All right, now once that's mixed through, take your beater out. There we go. I might just pop that there. And you then use a large metal spoon. So I'm just going to make sure that's all fabulous. Look how light and fluffy this is. So this is when we start adding all the dry ingredients. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add it all in at the one time. So we're going to add in the self-raising flour, the corn flour, custard powder. I know this is an interesting little recipe I created. That's the bicarb. And then we're going to add in the teaspoon of baking powder. Now, I'll tell you the difference in a minute between the bicarb and the baking soda, because there is a difference. Sometimes people get confused which is which. So I'm just going to sift that all in together. Now, bicarb is really good for bickies, like in Anzacs and things like that. I use it with the apple sauce to help fluff a recipe up. And that's what you use bicarb for. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just gently, as if it's a sponge, fold this through. Don't get there and beat it up, just lovingly take your time and fold through. Now, the baking powder is what you can use. Say, for example, you've got a recipe and it calls for self-raising flour and you've got none. You've only got plain. Well, then you can use the baking powder instead. And you add half a cup of plain flour with 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and it's self-raising flour. Some people just do it that way. They don't want to buy 2 different flours, but I like having both. Now this is looking a bit fabulous. How easy is it, guys? And for those of you that have been scared about sponges, look how easy it is. Okay, now we're going to coat the tins. My poor old 40-year-old tins, my pans. I've got my oven on at 180 degrees, fan forced. And now what I do is I divide the mix up. So I look at, giving equal amounts. So I think, okay, let's put about 3 blobs. I'm sure there's a technical word for it, but we're going to go with blob. 3 blobs. And just look how even it is. I'm going to spread this out. Look how fluffy and fabulous. Excuse me, is this looking the best sponge? Okay, we need more in this one. Oh my gosh. Let's get this in the oven. As I said, gently spread it out so it's nice and even, because you want it to be flat. I'm going to take another little bit out of there. Oh, that looks perfect. In the oven, as I said, 180. In the middle of the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. I'll start it at 15 and we'll go from there. Okay, so now, of course, I need to show you the finished product. So here is what I made earlier. Hello. I put some paper, baking paper between it so you could see. But look at that. Isn't that fabulous? And how easy. Your family are going to be so impressed with you. And I say, hello Mother's Day, let's be making a sponge. So I'm going to dress it today with some jam. And I don't know about you guys, but I favour raspberry. What do you favour? Are you a strawberry or an apricot girl? Or a blueberry? Or blackberry jam? I don't know, I like raspberry. And then you can actually put that on now and it's lovely. But what I'm going to do is I've got some simple sweet cream that's actually in book 3, and you just blend up low-fat cottage cheese with a little bit of sugar and a little bit of vanilla essence and just blend it till it's smooth. And so this is kind of my cream. So just however much you think. And you can put it on the top as well if you like. Lid goes on. And of course, we have to make it even more fizzy fabulous. I'm going to put a little bit of icing sugar, because my grandmother used to do this. Icing sugar over the top. Excuse me, go to a bakery and you'll spend 10 bucks on this. No way. Hello? How good is that? Now, that's the recipe for today. I hope you've liked it. Now, if you're thinking about a prize that you're going to be the winner chicken dinner, then you need to enter. And I'm going to give you book 3, because obviously you want the simple sweet cream and the fabulous light sponge. So 3 people are going to win this book. Now what you do is you have to like, share, and then in the comments, you know what you got to do, girls and boys. You write hashtag simply with a Y. If you do SIM, you won't go in the draw. SYMPLY, number 2, good. And you might be the winner chicken dinner. Now, if you're interested in my aprons, you could go to my website, www.simplytoogood.com.au. They're there waiting for you. I mean, live to cook, love to cook, and cook the healthy way like I do. So grab your own apron and be fizzy and fabulous in the kitchen. Now, next week's show is actually about food allergies, because it's food allergy week. And I'm going to be talking about some of the switches you can do and alternates, because if you're gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever free, or nut problem, whatever, we're going to look at all those ways to help you be that little bit more healthier and fabulous. I mean, who knew that weight loss could be so deliciously healthy? I think we're going to put a cup of tea on. Diane, are you feeling like a bit of sponge cake for afternoon tea? You know that Queen Victoria used to have a piece of sponge cake every afternoon, and that's why they called it the Victoria sponge back in the 16th century, or wherever it was. Some Italian guy invented it. Anyway, girls and guys, thanks for joining me. And don't forget, check the website, simplytoogood.com.au. I'm going to see you next week. Bye now.